The day I painted my house electric purple, Karen's face turned the same color. Her perfectly manicured hand clutched her chest as she stumbled backward off my porch, those designer sunglasses nearly falling off her nose. But that moment of pure, unfiltered shock, that was 3 months in the making. It all started with 3 dandelions. Just 3 tiny yellow flowers that Karen decided were worth $500 of my hard-earned money. I remember the exact moment my war with Karen Mitchell began. It was a Tuesday morning, 7:15 a.m., and I was leaving for work. My yard looked perfect, freshly mowed stripes across the lawn, hedges trimmed at exactly 45-degree angles, not a single leaf out of place. I'd spent every weekend for the past month making sure everything met the Meadowbrook Heights HOA standards. That's when I saw it. A crisp white envelope tucked into my screen door. The Meadowbrook Heights Homeowners Association logo embossed in gold at the top. My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came in those envelopes. I pulled out the letter with shaking hands. Notice of violation and fine, dear homeowner. During our routine property inspection on April 15th, 2024, the following violations were observed at your property located at 123 Maple Drive. 3 count. 3 dandelion weeds present in front lawn, located approximately 6 feet from sidewalk. This constitutes a violation of Section 4.7 of the Meadowbrook Heights HOA Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, which states, all lawns must be maintained in a weed-free condition at all times. My hands started trembling as I read the next part. Fine assessed $500. Payment due within 14 days. Failure to pay will result in additional penalties of $50 per day and potential lien placement on your property. $500 for 3 dandelions. I looked at my lawn. It took me 10 minutes to even find the damn thing's 3 tiny yellow flowers barely visible near the mailbox post. They must have sprouted overnight. At the bottom of the letter, in bold red ink, was a handwritten note. Standards matter in Meadowbrook Heights. Karen Mitchell, HOA President. I called in late to work. This couldn't wait. Karen's house was the largest on our street. A massive colonial with white columns that she claimed made it look classical but really just made it look pretentious. Her lawn was immaculate. Of course, not a single blade of grass out of place. Probably had a professional crew out there every other day. I rang the doorbell. Twice. Karen opened the door wearing what I'd come to recognize as her HOA President uniform, a crisp white blazer, pearl necklace, and an expression that suggested she smelled something unpleasant. "Can I help you?" she asked. Even though she knew exactly who I was and why I was there, I held up the violation notice. $500. Karen, 4, 3 dandelions. She smiled. Not a friendly smile, the kind of smile a shark gives right before it attacks. The rules are quite clear. Section 4.7, Paragraph 2, Subsection B. I didn't write the rules. I simply enforced them. She raised one perfectly manicured hand and examined her nails. Besides, if I make exceptions for you, I'd have to make exceptions for everyone. Where would it end? Where would it end? I repeated. Karen, they're dandelions. They probably sprouted yesterday. I mow my lawn twice a week. Then you should have been more vigilant. She started to close the door. Wait, I said. I've lived here for 7 years. I've never gotten a violation before. This is excessive. Karen's eyes narrowed. You know what's excessive? Your garage door. You've been parking on the street 3 nights a week for the past month. That's a violation of Section 8.3. Would you like me to add that to your fine? I felt heat rising in my chest. My garage door opener broke. I'm waiting for the part to come in. 2 weeks, maximum, for repairs. According to Section 12.1. I've been generous, not citing you. She raised her hand again, this time pointing at me. Pay the fine, remove the weeds, and be grateful I'm not adding additional penalties. The door slammed in my face. I didn't pay the fine. Not right away. Instead, I did something Karen probably never expected. I actually read the entire HOA Covenant, all 73 pages of it. It took me 3 nights, but I found something interesting. Very interesting. Section 15.4. All HOA board members must maintain their properties to a standard equal to or exceeding that expected of general homeowners. Board members found in violation of any covenant provision shall be subject to immediate review and potential removal. The next Saturday morning, it took a walk, a very specific walk, past Karen's house. And I looked. Really looked. Her mailbox post was rotted at the base. Section 9.2 required mailbox structures to be maintained in good repair. Her house numbers were faded and peeling. Section 7.1 required clearly visible address numbers in good condition. Most interesting of all, her fence, the beautiful white picket fence she was so proud of. It extended exactly 6.3 inches into the utility easement on the south side of her property. I measured it myself with a tape measure, then checked the property survey available at the county recorder's office. Section 19.6 was crystal clear. No structures, fences, or permanent installations shall be placed within utility easements. Karen had been in violation for at least 5 years. I found photos on the neighborhood Facebook page from 2019 showing that fence in the same location, but here's where it got really interesting. I started attending HOA meetings, something I'd never done before because, honestly, who wants to spend their Tuesday evenings listening to Karen droning on about grass height regulations? But I went, and I listened. And I noticed something odd. At the May meeting, Karen mentioned that the HOA had recently spent $4,200 on landscaping improvements for the common areas. But our common areas looked exactly the same. No new plants, no new mulch, nothing. I raised my hand. Excuse-me, Karen? Where exactly were these landscaping improvements made? She looked annoyed. The entrance monument, new plantings. The entrance monument has the same plants it's had for 3 years, I said. Well, I don't have the receipts with me right now, she snapped, but I assure you, the work was done. After the meeting, I approached our HOA treasurer, a quiet elderly man named Robert Chun. Robert, could I see the financial statements? As a homeowner, I have the right to review them, correct? He looked uncomfortable. Well, yes, technically, but Karen usually handles. I'd like to see them, please. It's my right under the bylaws. He sighed. Come by my house tomorrow. I'll have copies ready. The financial records Robert gave me were a mess, but I'm an accountant. Messy records are my specialty. It took me 2 weeks of going through bank statements, receipts, and transaction records. But I found it. Over the past 4 years, Karen had systematically funneled $47,632 out of the HOA accounts. Fake vendor invoices for landscaping that never happened. Legal fees paid to her cousin's law firm for work that was never documented. Emergency repairs to common area equipment that didn't exist. It was all there. Every fraudulent transaction carefully hidden in legitimate expenses. But not carefully enough. I sat at my kitchen table, spreadsheets covering every surface, and I smiled. Actually smiled for the first time in weeks. Then my doorbell rang. I opened it to find another white envelope. Another violation. Notice of violation and fine second offense. Dear homeowner, during our inspection on May 22nd, 2024, the following violations were observed. Front porch light fixture contains burnt-out bulb. Violation of Section 6.9 requiring all exterior lighting to be functional and properly maintained. Fine assessed $250. Additionally, your initial fine of $500 remains unpaid. Total amount due, $750. Payment due within 7 days at, to bottom, in that same red ink. I expect better from Meadowbrook Heights residents. I looked at the porch light. The bulb had burned out that morning. That very morning. Which meant Karen had been watching my house, waiting for any tiny thing she could cite me for. That's when I made my decision. If Karen wanted to play hardball, I'd show her what hardball really looked like. I opened my laptop and started searching. Spite houses, legal exterior colors, HOA revenge stories. I researched for hours, taking notes, checking local ordinances, city codes, everything. And that's when I found it, the perfect legal loophole that would make Karen's life absolutely miserable. Meadowbrook Heights HOA Covenants restricted exterior house colors to earth tones, including but not limited to beige, tan, brown, gray, cream, and muted greens. They even had a pre-approved color palette with 47 different shades. But here's the thing, the city of Riverside had no color restrictions whatsoever. None. As long as the paint wasn't reflective or creating a traffic hazard, you could paint your house any color you wanted. And according to the legal precedent established in Community Associations Institute v. Murphy, 2016, HOA color restrictions could not supersede individual property rights when the HOA failed to maintain proper enforcement standards. Karen had failed to enforce the color policy uniformly. I'd documented 17 houses in Meadowbrook Heights with colors outside the approved palette. Most were subtle violations, like using slightly too bright white trim or navy blue instead of the approved colonial blue. But violations were violations, and if Karen wasn't enforcing the rules equally, she couldn't enforce them against me. I called 3 lawyers that afternoon. The third one, a property rights specialist named Jennifer Martinez, actually laughed when I explained what I wanted to do. "You want to paint your house purple to get back at your HOA president?" "Not just purple," I said. "The brightest, most obnoxious, most legally protected purple available." "Can they stop me?" She was quiet for a moment. "Send me your HOA covenants and the list of violations you've documented. Give me 2 days. 2 days later, she called back. "Do it," she said. "You're completely within your rights. The HOA can try to fine you, but based on their inconsistent enforcement and the city ordinances, any legal action would fail. In fact, if they tried to take you to court, I'd love to represent you. This is exactly the kind of case that sets precedent. How much will this cost me? My retainer is $2,000. But, honestly, you probably won't need me. Just having a lawyer send them a letter explaining why they can't touch you should be enough." I thought about the $750 in fines Karen had already assessed. I thought about the $47,000 she'd stolen from the neighborhood. I thought about her smug face when she slammed that door. "Send the letter," I said, "and I'll send you the retainer." Then I started shopping for paint. The paint store specialist looked at me like I was insane. "You want 20 gallons of our brightest purple? For exterior use." "That's correct," I said, examining the colors. "What's the most vibrant, eye-catching purple you have? Something that would be visible from space." He pulled out a card. "This is Violet Vindication. It's part of our premium line, very popular with people making statements." The color was perfect. Not quite neon, but close. A rich, deep purple, with almost an electric quality to it. In sunlight, it would practically glow. "How much?" $2,100 per gallon for the premium formula. "You said 20 gallons. I did the math. $42,000. Almost exactly the amount Karen had "I'll take it," I said. "All 20 gallons. And I need it delivered by next Friday." "That's a big project." "You hiring professionals?" "Oh yes," I said, smiling. "Only the best. I want this done perfectly." As I walked out of the paint store, my phone buzzed. Another email from Karen. "Your total fines now equal $1,000 due to late payment penalties. Pay immediately or face lien proceedings." I forwarded the email to Jennifer Martinez with a single line. Game on. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Karen's face when she saw what I was about to do. The shock, the horror, the absolute fury. But more than that, I kept thinking about the documents Robert Schoon had quietly handed me at the last HOA meeting. Copies of everything. Bank statements, forged invoices, all of it. "I'm retiring next month," he'd whispered. "Moving to Florida, but someone needs to stop her before she bleeds this neighborhood dry." I'd been planning to handle this quietly, show Karen the evidence, demand she repay the money and resign, avoid the scandal. But then she'd come after me for a burnt-out light bulb. So quiet was off the table. I scheduled the painting crew for the following Wednesday. Professional painters, licensed and bonded. Everything by the book. And I scheduled something else for Thursday, an emergency HOA audit requested by 15% of the homeowners, exactly the threshold required by the bylaws. I'd spent 2 weeks knocking on doors, explaining what I'd found, getting signatures. Karen had no idea what was coming. As I finally drifted off to sleep, I smiled. In 9 days, Karen Mitchell's perfect little kingdom was going to come crashing down. And it was all going to start with the brightest purple house Meadowbrook Heights had ever seen. Want to know what Karen does when she sees the painters arrive? Comment purple below. What color would you paint your house if your HOA pushed you too far? Drop your revenge color in the comments. The week before painting day felt like the longest 7 days of my life. Every morning, I'd wake up expecting another violation notice from Karen. Every evening, I'd check my mailbox with my heart pounding. But nothing came. The silence was almost worse than her constant harassment. I spent those 7 days preparing. Not just for the paint job, for war. Monday morning, I met with Jennifer Martinez at her office downtown. She had the HOA Covenants spread across her desk, highlighted in 4 different colors. "You've done excellent work," she said, tapping a thick folder. Karen Mitchell's violated at least 12 separate covenant provisions. Her fence encroachment alone could get her removed from the board. "What about the embezzlement?" I asked. Jennifer's expression turned serious. "That's criminal. The HOA audit will uncover it. But you need to be prepared. Karen won't go down quietly. She'll fight. She'll threaten. She'll try to make your life hell." "She already has," I said. Jennifer smiled. "Then you have nothing to lose. Here's what we're going to do." She pulled out a legal document. "This is a cease and desist letter. It explains that any further harassment, fines, or violations issued to you will be considered retaliatory and actionable. It also puts the HOA on notice that you're aware of the embezzlement and property violations." "When do we send it?" "Wednesday morning, the same day your painters arrive. Tuesday evening, I knocked on doors. Not just any doors. Specifically the 17 houses I documented with color violations, the ones Karen had conveniently ignored while she was busy harassing me. My first stop was 137 Maple Drive, where the Johnsons had navy blue shutters instead of the approved colonial blue. Mrs. Johnson opened the door, saw me, and immediately looked worried. "If this is about the shutters—" "It's not," I said quickly. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you about Karen Mitchell." 5 minutes later, we were sitting at her kitchen table. I showed her the financial documents, the embezzlement, evidence, everything. $47,000. Mrs. Johnson's hand flew to her mouth. "That's our money. Our HOA fees?" "Exactly," I said, "and she's been using covenant enforcement as a weapon while stealing from all of us. Tomorrow, I'm painting my house purple, not because I want a purple house, but because I'm done letting her bully this neighborhood." Mrs. Johnson was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "What can I do to help?" By the end of the night, I'd visited 12 houses. 11 of them signed the petition for the emergency audit. The 12th house. They wanted to paint their house too. "What color?" I asked. Mr. Chun from 142 Oak Street grinned. "Hot pink. My wife has always wanted a hot pink house." Wednesday morning arrived with clear blue skies, perfect painting weather. At 7 a.m., a massive truck pulled up in front of my house. Violet Vindication was stenciled on the side in, appropriately, purple letters. The driver climbed out, clipboard in hand. "Delivery for the Purple House project?" "That's me," I said. He whistled low. 20 gallons of Vindication. "You must really want to make a statement." "You have no idea," I replied. As the delivery crew unloaded the paint cans, I noticed movement across the street. Karen's curtains twitching. She was watching? Good. I wanted her to watch. At 8 a.m., the painting crew arrived. 5 professionals, all wearing matching white coveralls. The crew chief, a man named Marcus, with 20 years of experience, shook my hand. "So," he said, eyeing the purple paint, "I have to ask, why?" I told him the short version. The dandelions, the fines, the embezzlement. Marcus laughed. "Had an HOA president try to fine me once. I painted racing stripes on my garage door. Sometimes you gotta make a point." He raised his hand in a mock salute. "Let's make this the best purple house in the state." Karen strikes back. The first stroke of purple paint hit my house at 8:30 a.m. Karen appeared on my porch at 8:32 a.m. She was wearing her President blazer, pearl necklace perfectly positioned, sunglasses perched on her head. But her face was the color of the paint going on my walls. "What do you think you're doing?" "C'est strict." I was sitting in a lawn chair, coffeeing and watching the crew work. "Good morning, Karen. Lovely day for painting, isn't it? This is a violation. This. She sputtered, raising her hand and pointing at my house. "Purple is not an approved color." "Actually," I said calmly, pulling out a folder, "according to City Ordinance 3-7-12, I can paint my house any non-reflective color I choose. The HOA Covenant is superseded by City Code when enforcement has been inconsistent." I handed her a copy of Jennifer's letter. "This explains everything. My attorney sent the original to the HOA board this morning." Karen snatched the letter. her hands shaking as she read. I watched her face change from rage to confusion to something close to fear. "This is nonsense," she said, but her voice was quieter now. "You can't. I can. And I am." I took a sip of my coffee. "By the way, the emergency HOA audit is scheduled for tomorrow at 7 p.m. I assume you received the notice. 15% of homeowners requested it, all proper and by the book." The color drained from her face. "Audit? Standard financial review. Nothing to worry about if everything's in order." I smiled. "Is everything in order, Karen?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to approve the second code application." I turned back to watch the crew work. Karen stood there for another 30 seconds, the letter crumpling in her hand. Then she spun around and marched back to her house. She slammed her door so hard I heard it from across the street. At 10 a.m., a police car pulled up. Officer Rodriguez stepped out, looking apologetic. "Sir, we received a call about a disturbance. Unauthorized painting." I showed him my permits, the city ordinance, and Jennifer's letter. He read them, handed them back, and sighed. "Sir, you're completely within your rights. This is a civil HOA matter, not a police matter." He glanced at Karen's house. "Let me guess." She called. "Good guess," I said. Officer Rodriguez shook his head. "Fourth HOA call, this month. Look, I have to make a report, but you're good. Nice color, by the way." He raised his hand in a wave and left. At 11 a.m., a city inspector arrived. Same process. Permits, ordinances, letter. He approved everything and left. At noon, Karen called an emergency HOA board meeting. I received the notification at 12:15. Emergency board meeting today at 3 p.m. Topic: unauthorized property modifications and covenant violations. I forwarded it to Jennifer. She called me 30 seconds later. "I'll be there." Don't worry. She's desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. The HOA community center was packed. Word had spread. Neighbors I'd never met showed up to watch the show. Karen sat at the head table, flanked by the two other board members. Robert Chu, who looked uncomfortable, and Linda Walsh, who seemed confused about why we were even there. Jennifer sat next to me in the front row, professional and calm. Karen called the meeting to order. Her voice was tight, controlled. "We're here to address a serious covenant violation. One of our residents has painted his house an unauthorized color. Point of order," Jennifer said, standing. "The color is fully authorized under city ordinance, which supersedes HOA covenants when enforcement has been inconsistent." Karen's jaw tightened. "The HOA covenant clearly states, 'The HOA covenant has not been uniformly enforced,'" Jennifer continued. "My client has documented 17 properties with color violations that have never been cited. Under California law, selective enforcement invalidates the restriction." She placed a thick binder on the table. "Here's the documentation. Photos, dates, property addresses. Would you like to review it?" Karen's face went pale. Robert Chun leaned forward. "Karen, is this true? Have we been ignoring violations?" Well, those are minor differences," Karen stammered. "Minor." I stood up. "You fine me $500 for 3 dandelions, but the Johnson's navy blue shutters are just minor. The Martinez's white trim is just minor." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Johnson stood up. "She'll fine me $250 for a cracked driveway last year. Said it was urgent. It's still not fixed because I couldn't afford the repair." Mr. Martinez raised his hand. $300 for a garden gnome. A garden gnome. More voices joined in. Years of petty fines, harassment, selective enforcement. It all came pouring out. Karen's hands were shaking. She raised them, trying to restore order. "This is everyone needs." To we have rules. Linda Walsh turned to Robert Chun. "Did you know about this? About the selective enforcement?" Robert looked at Karen, then at the crowd, then back at Linda. "I've been concerned for a while. There are other issues too. Financial irregularities." The room went silent. Karen stood up abruptly. "This meeting is adjourned." "Sit down, Karen," Robert said quietly. "We need to talk about the audit tomorrow." Karen didn't sit down. She grabbed her purse and walked out. But before she left, she turned back. Her face was a mask of rage and something else. Fear you have no idea what you've done, she said, her voice cold. You think painting your house purple makes you clever? You think you've won? She pointed at me, her hand trembling. Tomorrow's audit will show that I've done nothing wrong. And when it does, I'm coming after you for defamation, harassment, and every violation I can find. I will make your life a living hell. Then she was gone. The room erupted in conversation. Jennifer leaned over to me. She's going to run. Tonight. She knows the audit will expose everything. Can she? I asked. She can try, but if she does, it proves guilt, and we'll have law enforcement involved. I drove home in a daze. My house was finished, perfectly, brilliantly, defiantly purple. It glowed in the afternoon sun like a beacon. Marcus and his crew were packing up. All done, he said. 3 coats. Sealed. Guaranteed for 10 years. She's beautiful. She really is, I agreed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Karen's face. The rage, the fear, the desperation. At 2 a.m., I heard an engine. I looked out my window. Karen's car was in her driveway, trunk open. She was loading boxers. I grabbed my phone and took photos. Then I called Jennifer. She's leaving, I whispered, right now. Loading her car. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Don't do anything. I'm calling the police. And the HOA attorney. If she leaves before the audit, we can freeze her assets. I watched from my window as Karen made trip after trip. Boxers, bags, her laptop, files. Then she stopped. She stood in her driveway, staring at my purple house. Even from across the street, I could see her expression. Poor hatred. She raised her hand, middle finger extended, directed at my house. Then she got in her car. But before she could start the engine, 3 police cars pulled onto our street, lights flashing. Karen froze. An officer approached her window. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Karen's face. The color drained from it completely. My phone rang. Jennifer! They're not arresting her yet, she said. But they've informed her that leaving town before the audit would constitute evidence of fraud. She's not going anywhere. I watched as Karen slowly got out of her car. The police stayed for another 20 minutes, talking to her, taking notes. Finally, they left. Karen stood in her driveway, alone, surrounded by boxers. Then she looked up at my house again. Antistim under the streetlight, I saw something different in her expression. Defeat? Will Karen show up to the audit, or will she try something desperate? Come and audit to find out what happens next. Has your HOA president ever tried to flee before getting caught? Share your story below. Thursday morning felt different. The air was thick with anticipation, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. I woke up at 6 a.m., made coffee, and sat on my porch watching Karen's house. Her car was still in the driveway, exactly where the police had made her leave it. The boxers were gone from the lawn, presumably moved back inside. Every light in her house was on, even though the sun was already rising. She hadn't slept. Primera, cool, tel. Neither had I. My phone rang at 7:30. Jennifer Martinez. The auditor arrives at noon to review documents before the public meeting, she said. Karen has to produce 4 years of financial records, bank statements, receipts, contracts, everything. Can she forge them? I asked. Not in 6 hours, and the auditor will verify everything with banks and vendors directly. If she's stolen $47,000, it will show. What happens then? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Criminal charges. Restitution. Possibly jail time. At minimum, she loses her house to pay back what she stole. I thought about that. Karen losing everything. Her perfect house, her position of power, her reputation. Part of me felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the $500 fine for 3 dandelions. The harassment, the burnt-out light bulb violation, her smug face slamming the door. The sympathy evaporated. By 5 p.m., the HOA Community Center parking lot was completely full. Cars lined the street for 3 blocks. I'd never seen this many neighbors show up for anything. Mrs. Johnson grabbed my arm as I walked in. Thank you, she whispered, for having the courage to stand up to her. Mr. Tuna approached with his wife. We signed a contract on the hot pink paint, he said with a grin. Painters come next week. More and more people stopped me. Years of frustration, petty fines, harassment, it all came pouring out. Karen had been terrorizing Meadowbrook Heights for so long that everyone had just accepted it as normal, until someone painted their house purple. The meeting room was packed, every seat taken, people standing along the walls. The energy was electric. At the head table sat Robert Chun, Linda Walsh, and an empty chair. Karen's chair. Next to them was a man in his 60s, wearing a gray suit. Harold Morrison, the independent auditor. He had 3 large boxers of documents stacked beside him, and a laptop open on the table. 6:55 p.m. No Karen. 6:50 p.m. Still no Karen. The room buzzed with whispers, people checking their phones, glancing at the door. At exactly 7 p.m., the door opened. Karen walked in like she was walking to her own execution. Gone was the crisp blazer and pearl necklace. She wore jeans and a plain black sweater. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes. She looked 10 years older than she had yesterday. She took her seat without making eye contact with anyone. Her hands were shaking as she placed a single folder on the table. Robert Chun cleared his throat. This emergency meeting of the Meadowbrook Heights HOA has been called to order. We're here to review the findings of our financial audit, conducted by Harold Morrison of Morrison & Associates. Harold adjusted his glasses and opened his laptop. I've spent the past 7 hours reviewing 4 years of HOA financial records, bank statements, vendor invoices, payment receipts, and transaction logs. He paused, looking at Karen. She was staring at the table. I've identified numerous irregularities, Harold continued. Payments to vendors that don't exist, invoices for services never rendered, cash withdrawals with no documentation. In total, I've documented $47,632 in unauthorized transactions. The room erupted, people gasping, shouting, demanding answers. Robert raised his hand for silence. Karen, would you like to respond to these findings? Karen slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were red. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I can explain. It started small, Karen said, her voice cracking. 5 years ago, my husband lost his job. We were behind on our mortgage. I borrowed $3,000 from the HOA account. Just temporarily, I was going to pay it back. She raised her hand to wipe her eyes, but then his medical bills started. Cancer treatment. The insurance didn't cover everything. I borrowed more and more. I kept thinking I'd pay it back. When he recovered, the room was silent now. Even I felt a pang of sympathy. He died 2 years ago, Karen continued. And by then, I'd taken too much. There was no way to pay it back. So I kept taking more to maintain the house, to maintain the image, to maintain... She trailed off. To maintain control, Jennifer said from the audience. Her voice wasn't cruel, just factual. You became increasingly strict with violations, increasing fines, harassing residents, because as long as everyone was afraid of you, no one would question your authority. Karen didn't deny it. She just nodded slowly. Mrs. Johnson stood up. My husband died last year too. I understand grief. I understand desperation. But you fined me $250 when I was trying to pay for his funeral. You knew what I was going through, and you still came after me. Her voice broke. You had no mercy. Why should we have mercy for you? Karen finally looked up, making eye contact with Mrs. Johnson. Tears were streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Harold Morrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to inform you that I'm legally obligated to report these findings to law enforcement. The district attorney will likely file charges. Karen nodded. No, I've already contacted an attorney. She opened the folder she'd brought and pulled out several documents. This is the deed to my house, and these are my retirement account statements. It's not enough to cover everything I took, but it's all I have. She slid them across the table to Robert. I'm offering full restitution. My attorney says I can avoid jail time if I pay everything back and resign immediately. Robert looked at Linda, Tin at Harold, then at the crowd. This is unprecedented. The board needs to vote on whether to accept restitution or pursue criminal charges. Point of order, Jennifer said. The HOA board doesn't have the authority to decline criminal prosecution. That's up to the district attorney. However, the board can choose whether to file a civil suit for additional damages. Robert nodded. Right. So the question is, Do we pursue additional civil action beyond criminal restitution? I raised my hand. Robert nodded at me. I started all this, I said, standing up. Karen fined me $500 for 3 dandelions. I painted my house purple out of spite. I dug into the finances looking for ammunition to use against her. I looked at Karen. She was staring at me, waiting. But I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because tyranny thrives when good people stay silent. Karen abused her power. She hurt people. She stole from us. And she needs to face consequences. I paused. However, she's offering full restitution. She's losing her house. Her reputation is destroyed. She'll have a criminal record. At some point, punishment becomes cruelty. I sat down. I vote we accept the restitution and let the criminal justice system handle the rest. No additional civil suit. Mrs. Johnson stood. I second that motion. One by one, hands went up around the room. Not everyone voted yes. Some people wanted blood, but the majority agreed. Robert counted the votes. Motion passes. Karen Mitchell, you are hereby removed from the HOA board effective immediately. You have 30 days to vacate your position and complete the restitution process. Karen stood up slowly. She looked around the room one last time. I know you all hate me, she said quietly. I hate myself. I became the villain of this neighborhood. I hurt people who didn't deserve it. And I'm sorry. That doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. She walked toward the door. Then she stopped next to my seat. Your house looks ridiculous, she said. I looked up at her. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she smiled, just a little, but it's the most honest thing in this neighborhood. And she left. Friday afternoon, a for sale sign appeared in Karen's yard. I was sitting on my porch when the real estate agent hammered it in. She looked up at my purple house, did a double tick, and laughed. That's quite a statement, she said. It was supposed to be, I replied. She walked over. I heard what happened with Karen. The whole neighborhood is talking about it. I imagine they are. For what it's worth, she said, this neighborhood needed someone to stand up to her. People were miserable here. You did a good thing. I didn't know what to say to that. That evening, the emergency HOA board meeting reconvened. Robert Chun was elected temporary president. His first motion, I move that we eliminate all fines under $100 from the Covenant enforcement policy. Minor violations will receive written warnings only. It passed unanimously. His second motion, I move that we remove the approved color palette restriction. Homeowners may paint their houses any non-reflective color approved by city ordinance. That passed too. Mrs. Johnson raised her hand. I'd like to nominate someone for permanent HOA president. Oh no. I knew where this was going. I nominate the gentleman with the purple house, the one who had the courage to stand up when no one else would. Everyone turned to look at me. Oh, hell no, I said. The room erupted in laughter. I painted my house purple specifically to avoid this kind of responsibility. I continued. Robert is doing a great job. Let him keep doing it. More laughter. Robert grinned. Motion denied for lack of interest from the nominee. Karen's house sold fast. A young couple with 2 kids. They moved in on a Saturday. I watched from my porch as they unloaded their truck. The kids ran around the yard, laughing and playing. The father stood in the driveway, looking at the house with pride. Then he noticed my purple house. He walked across the street. Hi, I'm Marcus. Just moved in next door. I shook his hand. Welcome to Meadowbrook Heights. I'm the purple house guy. He finished with a grin. Yeah. The real estate agent told us the whole story. That's actually why we bought the house. She said this neighborhood just went through a revolution, and things were getting better. A revolution, I repeated. That's one way to put it. My wife loves your house, by the way. Says it takes guts to be different. I looked at my electric purple walls, glowing in the afternoon sun. You know what? I'm starting to like it too. That night, Jennifer Martinez called. I have news, she said. Karen's restitution went through. The HOA received full repayment, and the district attorney agreed to probation instead of jail time. Given her cooperation and full restitution, where is she now? I asked. Living with her sister in Oregon, working at a grocery store. Starting over? I thought about that. Karen Mitchell, former HOA, to rent, bagging groceries in Oregon. Good for her, I said. And I meant it. One more thing. Jennifer sighed. Mr. Chun's hot pink house is finished. You should see it. It's spectacular! I laughed. I'll walk over tomorrow. After we hung up, I sat on my porch, watching the sunset. My ridiculous purple house glowed in the fading light. 3 houses down, Mr. Chun's hot pink house glowed back. Meadowbrook Heights would never be the same, and that was exactly the point. 3 months later, I received a letter, handwritten, postmarked, from Oregon. The return address just said KM. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside was a single page, written in Karen's precise handwriting. And what it said changed everything I thought I knew about what had happened. Would you have shown Karen mercy, or pushed for maximum punishment? Tell me in the comments. I held Karen's letter in my hands for 5 full minutes before I had the courage to read it. My coffee had gone cold. The morning sun streamed through my kitchen window, illuminating the purple walls visible through the glass. 3 months had passed since the audit. 3 months since Karen Mitchell had lost everything. And now, a letter. I unfolded the single page. Her handwriting was neat, precise, exactly like her. Dear Purple House owner, I don't know if you'll read this. I wouldn't blame you if you threw it away, but I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it from me. You were right. About everything. I was a tyrant. I abused my power. I hurt people who didn't deserve it. For years, I told myself I was just enforcing the rules, maintaining standards, protecting property values. But that was a lie. The truth, I was hurt, and angry, and terrified. When my husband got sick, I watched our perfect life crumble. The medical bills destroyed us financially. The cancer destroyed him physically. And I destroyed myself emotionally. After he died, the HOA was the only thing I had left, the only place where I still had control, where I could make rules and people had to follow them, where I could punish and people had to accept it. It was sick. I was sick, but I couldn't stop. Then you planted your dandelions. Or rather, 3 dandelions planted themselves in your yard. And I saw an opportunity to exercise that control. $500. For 3 flowers. I knew it was excessive. I knew it was cruel. That's why I did it. Because making you suffer made me feel powerful. Made me feel like I still mattered. But then you painted your house purple. I paused reading. My hands were shaking slightly. That purple house broke something in me. Not in the way you think. It didn't make me angrier. It made me see myself clearly for the first time in years. You weren't afraid of me. You didn't cower. You didn't accept my authority. You challenged it, and in doing so, you showed everyone else that they could challenge it too. The night before the audit, when I tried to leave, I wasn't running from the law. I was running from myself, from the person I'd become. But the police stopped me, and I realized something. I couldn't run from myself. No matter where I went, I'd still be the person who hurt all those people. So I went to the audit. I confessed. And you know what? It was the most honest thing I'd done in 5 years. I'm writing to tell you 3 things. First, thank you. You saved me from myself. I was drowning in my own cruelty, and I didn't even know it. Your purple house was a life preserver I didn't know I needed. Second, I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not just for what I did to you, but for what I did to the entire neighborhood. Mrs. Johnson, the Martinezes, everyone. I destroyed trust. I created fear, and I can never undo that. Third, I'm better now. Working at a grocery store in Oregon isn't glamorous. I live in a tiny apartment. I don't have power over anyone. And you know what? I'm happier than I've been in years. I help elderly customers find products. I bag groceries. I smile at people. Real smiles. Not the fake HOA President smile. And they smile back. Because they're not afraid of me. Last week, a customer told me I was the nicest employee at the store. I cried in my car for 20 minutes after my shift because, for the first time in years, someone saw me as kind. Your purple house didn't destroy my life. It saved it. It forced me to face consequences. It forced me to change. It forced me to become human again. So thank you. For the dandelions. For the purple paint. For having the courage to stand up when everyone else stayed silent. I hope Meadowbrook Heights is thriving. I hope the new HOA board is fair. I hope no one else has to suffer the way I made people suffer. And I hope you still have your purple house, because the world needs more people who aren't afraid to be different. Sincerely, Karen Mitchell, former tyrant, current grocery bagger. Forever grateful. I set the letter down and stared at my purple walls. For 3 months, I'd been the hero of Meadowbrook Heights. The guy who stood up to the tyrant, the Purple House revolutionary. People waved at me on the street. New residents asked to take photos with my house. I'd told the story dozens of times. At neighborhood barbecues, at the grocery store, at the gym. Karen fined me for dandelions. So I painted my house purple and exposed her embezzlement. People loved it. David versus Goliath. The little guy wins. Justice prevails. But Karen's letter complicated that narrative. She wasn't just a villain, she was a broken person who broke other people. And my purple house hadn't just destroyed her, it had, apparently, saved her. I didn't know how to feel about that. I called Jennifer Martinez. I got a letter from Karen, I said. Oh, Jennifer's voice was carefully neutral. What did it say? I read it to her. The whole thing. When I finished, there was silence on the line. That's unexpected, Jennifer finally said. Most people in her situation blame everyone but themselves. She's taking full responsibility. She thanked me, I said. She thanked me for destroying her life. You didn't destroy her life. She did that herself. You just held up a mirror. Is there a difference? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Yes, there is. Karen made choices. She chose to embezzle. She chose to abuse her power. She chose to harass people. Your purple house didn't make her do any of that. It just revealed what she'd already done. But now she's bagging groceries in Oregon. And according to her letter, she's happier than she's been in years. Is that really so terrible? I didn't have an answer. That evening, there was a neighborhood barbecue. Monthly tradition started after Karen left. Robert Chun's idea to build community. I brought Karen's letter with me. Everyone was there. Mrs. Johnson, the Martinezes, Mr. Chun with his glorious hot pink house, the new family who'd bought Karen's old place. Even Jennifer Martinez had driven out. As the sun set and the conversations quieted, I stood up. I need to share something with all of you, I said, holding up the letter. I received this from Karen yesterday. The mood shifted immediately. Smiles faded. People sat down their drinks. I wasn't going to share it. I continued. But I think you all deserve to hear it, because what happened here affected all of us. I read the letter aloud. Every word. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Mrs. Johnson was the first to speak. She said she's happier now. That's what she wrote. Mrs. Johnson raised her hand to her mouth. I don't know how to feel about that. Part of me wanted her to suffer. Part of me is glad she's finding peace. Mr. Martinez stood up. She'll find me $300 for a garden gnome. $300. My daughter gave me that gnome. I had to get rid of it because I couldn't afford the fine. He paused, emotion thick in his voice. But she was sick. Not physically, emotionally. And sick people do sick things. I'm not saying I forgive her, but I understand her better now. One by one, people shared their reactions. Anger, sadness, confusion, relief, understanding, resentment, compassion. All of it was valid. Robert Chun finally spoke. I think we need to decide something as a community. Do we respond to her letter? What would we say? Someone asked. Robert thought for a moment. Maybe we just let her know we received it. That we heard her. That we're moving forward. Mrs. Johnson raised her hand. I'd like to add something, that we hope she continues to find peace, because holding on to anger hurts us more than it hurts her. The group voted unanimously. They agreed to send a response. We wrote it together, passing around a notebook, each person adding a line. Dear Karen, we received your letter. Thank you for your honesty. What you did hurt us. Some of those wounds are still healing. But we appreciate you taking responsibility, and we acknowledge the courage it took to write to us. Meadowbrook Heights is different now. We eliminated the petty fines. We removed the color restrictions. We're building a community based on kindness rather than fear. The Purple House still stands, by the way. It's become a symbol of standing up for what's right. We even have a hot pink house now, and a bright yellow one. Our neighborhood looks like a rainbow, and we love it. We hope you continue to find peace in Oregon. We hope you continue to be kind to yourself and others. We hope you've truly changed. We're moving forward. We hope you are too. Sincerely, the residents of Meadowbrook Heights. 23 people signed it. Not everyone. Some people still couldn't bring themselves to extend that olive branch. And that was okay too. Life in Meadowbrook Heights settled into a new normal. A better normal. My Purple House became a landmark. Turn left at the Purple House. 3 blocks past the Purple House. Real estate agents used it as a selling point. The hot pink house was equally famous. Mr. Chun's grandkids loved it. Te Cayedid, the Princess House. The bright yellow house went up in April. Mrs. Johnson painted it herself. Sunshine yellow. She called Italiano. Because after years of darkness, I wanted to live in sunshine. The HOA board under Robert Chun's leadership was boring. In the best possible way, they fixed streetlights, organized neighborhood events, and left people alone about their dandelions. One Saturday morning in June, I was mowing my lawn when a moving truck pulled up 3 houses down. A new family, a woman stepped out, looked at my purple house, and smiled. Then she walked over. "Is this the famous Purple House?" she asked. "Infamous? Maybe," I replied. "Welcome to the neighborhood." I read about this place online. Someone wrote a blog post about the HOA revolution, said this neighborhood went from tyranny to democracy because of dandelions and purple paint. I laughed. "That's surprisingly accurate." "Good," she said, "because we're planning to paint our house teal, and I wanted to make sure that was okay." "It's more than okay," I said, raising my hand in a wave. "It's encouraged." Exactly 1 year after Karen's first letter, I received another envelope from Oregon. Inside was a photo and a note. The photo showed Karen standing in front of a small house. It was painted purple. Not electric purple like mine. A softer lavender, but unmistakably purple. She was smiling. A real smile. Not the HOA president smile. Not the fake smile. Real. The note was short. I bought a house. Used my savings from working 2 jobs. It's small, but it's mine, and I painted it purple. Because purple represents courage. The courage to change. The courage to be different. The courage to stand up, even when you're standing up to yourself. Thank you for teaching me that courage. Thank you for your community's kindness in responding. Thank you for the Purple House that saved my life. My neighbors here asked why I painted my house purple. I told them the whole story. About the dandelions, the embezzlement, the audit, everything. They were horrified by who I used to be, but they love who I'm becoming. One of them said, "Your house is beautiful. Different is beautiful." And I cried, because I finally believe that different is beautiful. So, thank you for everything. Your purple fortress didn't just change Meadowbrook Heights. It changed me, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that second chance. With gratitude and purple paint, Karen and I pinned the photo to my refrigerator. 2 purple houses, 1,000 miles apart, connected by dandelions, mistakes, consequences, and redemption. Meadowbrook Heights is unrecognizable from what it was 3 years ago. 7 houses are painted in bold colors: purple, hot pink, sunshine yellow, teal, coral, turquoise, and mint green. We look like a Skittles commercial, and it's glorious. The HOA dues went down. Enforcement complaints went to 0. Property values went up. Surprisingly, turns out people like living in neighborhoods where individuality is celebrated. Robert Chun served 2 terms as president, then passed the torch to Mrs. Johnson. She's phenomenal fear-and-bot fair. No one fears her. Everyone respects her. Karen sends a letter every few months. Updates on her life. She got promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store. She volunteers at a women's shelter. She started therapy. Some people in the neighborhood still won't read her letters. That's their right. Forgiveness can't be forced. But most of us read them, and we write back. Short notes. Updates on the neighborhood. Photos of the colorful houses. Last month, Karen sent a photo of herself at the Oregon coast. She was raising her hand, waving at the camera, smiling. Free. I framed that photo and hung it next to the photo of her purple house. People ask me sometimes if I regret painting my house purple. If I regret starting this whole thing, You tell Tim no, not even for a second. Because 3 dandelions and a can of purple paint didn't just change a neighborhood, they changed lives. They proved that standing up to tyranny matters. They showed that consequences can lead to redemption. They demonstrated that different isn't just acceptable, it's beautiful. And they taught me something important. Sometimes the most powerful act of rebellion is simply refusing to be afraid. My house is still purple, spectacularly, defiantly, beautifully purple, and I wouldn't change it for the world. This is a story about courage, consequences, and redemption, about standing up to tyranny and giving people second chances. If this story moved you, share it. If you've ever felt powerless against someone abusing authority, know that your voice matters. Your actions matter. Even small acts of defiance can change everything. What would your revenge color be? Drop it in the comments. And remember, different is beautiful. Never be afraid to paint your house purple.